And like, how are you gonna do? So yeah, I completely get it. He's in daycare, so it's a little different, but yeah, I don't even know. I don't even know what we would do. All right, here we go. We're live. This is the very, very first podcast for the season. We're a week late. That's on me. That's not on my esteemed guest.
Listen, I think you can get the pass considering that we are both fathers, and like when the fact that this stuff is still just going as smoothly and easily as it is, I think is a testament to all of us, or maybe just our idiocy for wanting to keep going.
Yeah, no, it definitely is infinitely harder like now than it was a year ago.
Yeah,
you know,
because he's mobile now, right? He's moving around. Like you got to actually worry about shit like that.
Dude, he is gonna walk on his own any day now, and it is just like part of me is super excited, and part of me is deathly afraid of. I can't now. He crawls very fast, and he uses the walker very quickly. But I can catch up. But once he's really mobile, I know it's over.
Yeah, no, it is.
So.
It's
Oh well. I know you get right into it, right? I don't know if you want to start with the personal news. You want to talk Yankees. This is obviously not a Yankees chat for anyone who might tune in, but I don't want to deprive you of the opportunity.
There's so much fun stuff, and this is specifically for LaMagna and Kirshner, our Yankee chat brethren. I have some literal inside baseball stuff on the Yankees that's very non-public that I'll be able to share with you guys by the end of October. So I was really, really exciting. So how about that for a teaser as we jump into this? It's directly related to John Sterling, and it's directly related to the New York Yankees specifically. So it's a lot of fun.
Have they been eliminated from the playoffs? Is that that's not a condition?
I don't think they're officially eliminated yet. I think they're somehow still like mathematically alive, which is beggars belief. But I'll just say personally, the Yankees died a slow death here, shortly after the All-Star break for me, when it was just very clear that they were going the wrong way. And I'm kind of proud of myself that I haven't actually tuned in for a game since I'm trying to think. I can't even remember the last series I watched, but it was like, I think it was sometime around when they lost the 2 out of 3 to the Rockies, where I was pretty clear that this wasn't going anywhere. No, it's not been their better season. I can't say enough about how the team just is garbage, right? Like from top to bottom. Hal Steinbrenner has inherited this amazing thing and just doesn't give a shit about the actual winning. George Steinbrenner was a dickbag, but he actually cared about winning. It's the same thing you could say about Mark Cuban. Say what you want about him, but like the dude actually wants his team to win. Fuck the money. And it's just nice. It's a breath of fresh air to see sports owners who take on that air. And again, just as a nice foil, like I'm wearing an Arsenal shirt. Arsenal had its first. For those of you who are not soccer fans, hi Evan. The Arsenal was back in the Champions League today for the first time in 8 years, 10 years, 8 years, something like that. Some insane length of time. Their consecutive streak in the Champions League under Wenger was only beaten by Barcelona, Real Madrid, who basically have no competition for the Champions League each year. They fell on hard times, but I do want to say, like, in terms of good sports ownership, you look at the Kroenkes, who, again, if you're from St. Louis, not exactly something you want to love or something you want to talk about, but the Kroenke family went Rams Super Bowl, Avs Stanley Cup, Nuggets NBA championship, and Arsenal finished second last year and back in the Champions League and are very clearly contending for the title this year, setting City aside. And so, like, as the owners, to be able to have supported this consistent winning is pretty fucking incredible. Like, I don't think, like, as a sports world, we're talking enough about how this ownership group in all of these different sports is bringing these franchises up. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, except I think Kroenke's not seen as a very good owner when it comes to the fans, public perception. He's not visible. He doesn't come out and speak. He's not doing anything to try to improve his image. He clearly sees his team as an investment. Now, he's willing to spend in that investment more so than, we can use Arsenal as an example. There was just a lengthy interview published of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer today detailing all of the different ways in which essentially the Glazers handcuff Manchester United. If you can only make 3 signings a summer, you're simply not going to improve and fix the issues in your squad. Whereas Arsenal decided we're going to invest and go cheap. We're going to buy younger players who cost less. We're going to develop them, and over time, hopefully, that will provide the return that it is now. But that's a conservative strategy that worked out. But they went all in to pay with the Rams.
Yep.
They went all in to pay with the Avs. And so, he's willing to spend sometimes, but I think Kroenke, he's very hands-off on the team side of things. So I don't know that he deserves the credit, whereas someone like Cuban is very much involved, or Jerry Jones is very much involved. Now, you could debate the merits of that.
But let's think about this, right? Like, and maybe I'm giving Kroenke too much credit, but on one side of my sports fandom, there's Stan Kroenke with my adopted teams in my adopted city and Arsenal. And on the other side, you got James fucking Dolan, right? And so when you look at the world there, I would much rather have the Kroenke model of ownership than whatever the fuck the Knicks and Rangers have done for generally the entirety of my fucking lifespan, and what the Yankees have essentially done for the last 15 years, give or take, right? Again, to put it back on its head, right? The idea that Cashman had espoused with the baby Yankees was exactly the model that you're talking about. If we use Yankee money to buy smart young and build out the farm system, we can use the Yankee resources that teams like the Rays don't have to basically push the chips to the center. That's what Arsenal have done, right? It's not that different than, say, what Brighton are doing, just with a lot more money behind it. You look at guys that they've gotten, like Kivior, who's starting to play, Fabio Vieira, who's starting to play, Saka's homegrown, Emil Smith-Rowe had some good minutes there, right? Like, that's, to me, there's something. Now we're talking about soccer, which is a little bit silly for the whole thing, but
no, we're talking about football. We're talking about an actual game where foot and ball actually meet on a regular basis.
Like it was surreal to see them again tonight or this afternoon U.S. time with the Champions League music and being back on that stage, and not just to be back on that stage, to win well, right? It wasn't stressful, home game, big time scene. They just got it done. So, but listen, we're here to talk about American football. And so I just want to tell you, I've got this great plan. So tomorrow night, the Giants are playing the Niners, which actually is funny that we're talking tonight, because I'm not even going to pretend to think that the Giants are going to be on the same field as the Niners. And I actually do want to talk about the Giants-Cardinals game for a minute when I finish this spiel. But really importantly, I just want to tell you kind of what I have planned tomorrow night for the first Giants Thursday night game of the season. All right, so I'm going to get home from the office. I'm going to go to the office tomorrow. I'm going to get home. I'm going to go take my dog for a walk. We're just going to go for a nice little walk. Then I'll come back, pour myself a nice cocktail, grab a gummy, cut the gummy in half, have the cocktail, have half the gummy, go put Penelope to bed. And then when I'm really good and sauced, I'll have that second half of gummy and throw about 10 stacks right on the Giants. We're in.
Well, if you do that, you've got to put your Dion shades on, from Blenders Eyewear. We should shout them out. I've got some blenders, but God, I don't know if your mom raised you right to take your hat and your sunglasses off when you talk to other adults. So I appreciate you taking the glasses off for us tonight. Oh man, you're definitely living the dream, between Mike the Mad Dog discussing his Saturday plans on ESPN to basically get sauced and high and drop 10 large on the Buffaloes to get, who are going to get destroyed by Oregon.
You're going to get smoked. But I got to tell you, let me just tell you something, because nobody else, obviously the Bucs are the biggest story in college football through 3 weeks, right? And as the resident Coloradan, I just have to tell you, it is bananas here, right? So in the last couple of years, I've lived through the Russell Wilson, whatever we want to call that, the Avs Stanley Cup, and the Nuggets title. All of that stuff has been hilariously fun. It's been great times. The way that this city is reacting to that fucking football team is like nothing I have ever seen. People are bending over backwards to get up there. They're losing their minds. Saturdays are de facto holidays. We this sleepy little sandwich shop that shows has a bunch of TVs and is kind of a nice place to go watch football. I took Penelope there during the Nebraska game to just grab some lunch before nap time. Place was packed. People are screaming. I've never seen that ever for a team like this. You see all of the celebrities showing up in Boulder. Game Day's there. Pat McAfee's there. They got the big Saturday thing there. They've got 60 Minutes interviewing Cody Parkey. What is this? What is this? It's insanity to me.
I think nationally the media wants to capitalize on this moment to bring in all the casual fans to draw their attention, knowing that in the next 2 weeks, there's a very good chance Colorado gets beat really bad. on national TV, and it's the Oregon game's at 3:30. It's not at 10 o'clock. So
Yeah.
if Oregon's up 3 touchdowns in the third quarter, people are turning off the game. This isn't at midnight, drawing ratings on the East Coast. There's a lot of good football on this weekend. I think the media is really calculated to let's just hype it up. Either he delivers and it's an incredible story, or everybody wants to see wants to see it explode and see Icarus get too close to the sun. I think that's exactly what the media is hoping for. But you're right. I mean, you had game day, Pat McAfee, and Big Noon Kickoff all there last weekend, and the game was on ABC at like 10 o'clock at night.
And
It's
I
insane.
saw something like the ratings were something like 13 to 15 million people watched it on Saturday night, and the average Pac-12 after dark game gets somewhere between like 1 and 3. And
yeah,
like
it's like 9.3 million.
The number of people who came out of the woodwork to text me on Saturday night that like they were just like up late on the East Coast, like ready to watch this game. Like I was excited. Like I put Penelope to sleep and like actually poured myself a big ass cocktail and was like, let's fucking go. And even
and
me,
half a gummy.
yeah, and half a well, no, it was a full gummy. It was Saturday night.
You can handle it. You're not the 65-year-old man.
Yeah. Speaking of 65-year-old man, I missed the whole second half. I was gassed at halftime. Woke up to the final score on my couch. So it was,
I didn't even attempt to watch. I was like, I'm going to be up in 6 hours. There's no chance I'm staying up for overtime, and God knows how late that ended up. But it's incredible. It's incredible, and I'm sure in a year or two, Jerry Jones will come calling with $20 million, and he'll be in the NFL.
But whatever. So like most of my colleagues at work, or a lot of them are CU Buff business school alums. So I don't want to say they have inside info, but it's kind of the way we talk about, the Hoyas, right, with the basketball program. And a couple thoughts. Number one is they like, while everybody's amped and we're all loving the publicity, they were 1-11 last year. They're 3-0 right now. Like that alone, like, yes, Oregon is a far better team. I cannot wait to see the Caleb Williams-Shedeur matchup in 2 weeks. Like that is going to be freaking wild. They're at best an average team that's gotten off to a hot start against some weaker competition. But if you consider where they were last year versus what Deion's been able to do in a summer, is pretty freaking insane. And all the alums are basically saying it's not going to be the NFL. It's not going to be Jerry Jones. It's not going to be, pick your favorite NFL owner. It's going to be Florida State finally getting out of Bowden and finally saying it's time to bring
living here and being a very big college football fan and someone who is not a casual and is very much follows it year round. I would have said that a year or two ago, but Norvell at Florida State has there's a weird crossroads for Florida State. Now, I don't know how this year is going to turn out for them. I think their players are very much all looking at the NFL. And so if they lose 1 or 2 games, I think you have guys who just check out and are like, you know what? I'm going to preserve myself because I'm going to the league. They guys come back who did not need to come back and could have gone and been first-round picks. But that team is all transfers and old. He has not recruited and developed depth. Now they have a really good recruiting class potentially coming in as freshmen next year. He's going to have to hit the portal hard. I don't know if that's sustainable he's going to have to catch up and build the depth. But if Norvell can do that, let's say they win 10, 11 games or they make the playoff, I mean, he'll buy himself enough time to where he can do that. And I don't think Deion becomes that option. A year or two ago, I would have said, Norvell, this is not sustainable. This isn't going to work. They're not winning. But, if they beat Clemson and all of a sudden they get in the playoff, that becomes harder. I would agree with you. I think Florida State regrets to an extent not going after Deion or not waiting. But now you can't just discard a guy if he's going to win 11, 12 games for Deion. I think, and I don't know that Deion wants that. I think Deion feels a little bit slighted not having been kind of brought back as the chosen one.
And I also think, to your point, right? Like there's a part of me that also thinks, given the conference realignment and that Colorado is moving to the Big 12, right? That like they were first mover and got themselves a pretty good spot. And so it's not like Colorado can rise in the same way like Dabo built Clemson. Like if Deion wants to be committed to it, like there's a strong chance that you could get a repeat Colorado powerhouse, right? I mean, the other thing you got to think about is it's the same thing that people used to say about Miami, right? Which is come to the U, live in Miami, do the whole thing, right? Like you see these freaking shots. Like this is the best time of year in Colorado. Like if you watch the games, you watch the shows, like the weather is fucking unbelievable. We got temps in the low 80s. There's no humidity. Yep. You got the mountains rising behind. I saw some videos of practice today, the practice field with the flat irons rolling behind. Like, why wouldn't you want to come and do that? Right. One of the reasons the school's so good is that these great professors are like, fuck it. Like if I'm going to be in academia, why not live in Boulder as opposed to, with all due respect, Columbus. Like if I was offered a tenure at Ohio State or Colorado, and my choice is Columbus, Ohio or Boulder, Colorado, it's not really a very difficult decision for me.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think for Deion, it's, people forget, right? He's not young. This isn't like some 35-year-old, 40-year-old coach. He's in his 50s. Mm-hmm. I don't know how long he wants to do this. He's got some, weird health stuff every once in a while, had 2 toes amputated. Like, I don't know what Deion's end game is. He wanted to be a college coach for his kids to kind of help get them exposure. He's doing that. Shedur's probably going to be in New York if he stays healthy, because even if they're getting blown out, they're just going to let him chucking around and get stats. Shedur's probably going to be a first-round pick if he's healthy, just because he clearly can play. I don't know what the next move is. I don't know that Colorado is a permanent thing for him. I think it's a great stepping stone. I agree with you, though. He can grow with that. He can continue. He'll always be a force in recruiting and in the portal because of his brand, and he wants to promote the kids' brands. He wants to help them, promote themselves and develop, and he's not afraid to be different and be outspoken. But I don't know if someone, it's like, what if Saban retires? Not that Alabama would probably wouldn't fit, but
I think Alabama hires a black coach. I mean, that's the other unspoken part of this, right? Like,
right. But there are going to be schools in the SEC, the jobs open, who are going to go, maybe they make the phone call. I don't know if they do it, they make the hire, but he's going to have options every year, whether it's at the college or the NFL level. He's going to have options now that he's proven he can win. Yep. I think the biggest thing was, could he go to Colorado and win? Now, you're right. This is an average team off to a hot start. It's off to a hot start because of Prime and because the expectations were really low. Yep. But TCU basically handed them the game. Nebraska sucks. They should have lost to Colorado State. Let's see what the next 2 weeks are. If they play them close and lose, it's a huge win.
Right, and we got weather in Oregon, right? Like, what's the air attack, right? Because Oregon's got that great quarterback too, right? It's 2 weeks.
But Colorado can't run the ball, right? So the problem is if they're in bad weather, and because they can't run it in good conditions, I don't think they have a chance, because Oregon or USC, anyone, are just bigger, faster, stronger, type of athletes. Look, as an observer from very far away who did not think they'd be good, it's fun as hell to watch, because I don't know what the next part of this is going to be, but it's Prime. It's Deion. He's going to do something different. He's going to push the envelope, and it's exciting to watch how that makes people uncomfortable. But, if the next 2 weeks go poorly, I wonder what the media narrative is. And then, how does that affect things?
But I think we all need to realize, right, that Oregon and USC are arguably 2 of the top 10 programs in the country right now, right? Like, they really are. Right. Both of them have their eyes on the playoff. I think before the season, Colorado was looking at maybe we can fall backwards into a bowl. And I think that should still be the goal for them, right? Like maybe, right?
I think if Shadur stays healthy, they should make a bowl, because they'll lose to the teams that they should lose to, the USC, the Oregon, the Washington, the Utah type of teams, but they'll beat everyone else in conference because the conference is terrible. Yeah. So, like, can they get to 6? Yeah, they get to 6, maybe 7. Beyond that, I don't know. But that's a huge win, huge improvement. It's just basically an expansion team. It's impressive. It's different. I don't think it's sustainable at every school, but
right. The real work comes next year, right? Because like this year's all the fun, and then next year is okay. What's the
and Shedur's going to be gone, so you're going to have to bring in a quarterback.
Yeah,
clearly, where the weaknesses on the team are. What does it look like? I agree. What does next year look like if he's still there? What does that happen? We'll see. It's way too early to make predictions.
Every alum that I know is bending over backwards to get themselves tickets this year. They couldn't give tickets away for the last few seasons, and now it's like the only place to be in Colorado on a Saturday is Folsom Field. And by the way, for the record, unbelievable fucking stadium. Beautiful spot.
Of course.
Awesome. Like, it's really a great play. Like it, and like it brings back all the memories of those early 90s teams that won national titles, that had freaking, legends of the game, Cordell
Yeah,
Stewart.
Cordell Stewart, right? There
Yeah,
you
right.
go.
Like, it's awesome.
The five first downs against
Yeah.
Nebraska, right? They've been in some iconic games and seasons, and you're right. It's a beautiful stadium, great backdrop, but you got to sustain it, right? 1 year wonder is not going to. No one's going to care or remember that 5 years from now. But if you can put together a couple of good years, even just to be competitive, it's a win for the school. It's a win for what he can do.
Okay, so now we haven't talked about the NFL, and we're half an hour in. So
That's okay. That's okay. You know what?
Let's move on to more questions, because I want to talk about how the Cardinals tanked the second half against the New York Giants.
So yeah, I mean, you're a Giants fan. Now, you didn't score for six quarters. Do you think you score at all on Thursday night?
I think so. I think it's gonna be one of those weird Thursday night games where it's like 13-7.
I'd go like 20-6.
Yeah, like there's going to be some of that. Here's the thing: Giants can't run the ball. Saquon's obviously out. Giants aren't going to be able to throw against this defense. I think it's going to look very similarly to what happened against the Cowboys. That being said, because it's Thursday night, weird shit happens.
Yeah. And also the thing is, no one wants to get hurt, right? Short week. People will kind of want to get out of the game. There's been a lot of talk. McCaffrey basically is on the field every snap. They're not using Elijah Mitchell. I would expect, especially if the Niners get any kind of lead, they just pull McCaffrey.
No.
This is going to be the nobody gets hurt. Let's run the clock.
Yeah.
The Giant, nobody's scared of Daniel Jones, having some kind of crazy Mahomes-like performance. So, yeah, I agree with you. It's a Thursday night. It should be strange, but I don't know what the Giants team total is, but
yeah, I think it's gonna be low scoring on both sides of the ball. But yeah, I just don't understand how you go from 20-0 to losing on a last second field goal. And the only thing I can think of is that the Cardinals are doing this because it was very similar, right? How frisky did they look against the Commanders in week 1 before the Commanders had to all of a sudden have another miraculous comeback in that second half too against them, right?
Michael Bidwell from the Swede.
Josh Dobbs, he's not I watched the Giants game. I was like, he's not good. I'm not trying to tell you that Josh Dobbs should have a starting job in the NFL. I'm just saying, in a world in which I watched Kenny Pickett on Monday night, it's an interesting conversation, right? You tell me the Jets would rather have Zach Wilson right now than Josh Dobbs?
I don't know. But Michael Bidwell is definitely calling Jonathan Gannon, at halftime going, come on, call the dogs off. Yeah, it's the NFL, right? There's always going to be terrible teams that want to tank. I also think teams probably don't take Arizona seriously in their prep because you just look, there's really no talent. Now maybe they start to a little bit, but I just don't think you're going into that game going, oh man, we got to, the players themselves are not hyped the same way they are when they play a division rival or a good team. They're like, no one's going to tune in and watch. This is the fodder. This is making up the quad box on YouTube, Sunday Ticket. Nobody really cares about it. So I don't put a lot of stock in it. I do agree with you, though, that Arizona seems a little too frisky in the first half of games. I don't really get it. Josh Dobbs isn't throwing the ball around. He's kind of wildcatting it up, if you will. I mean, the guy's an aerospace, engineer, for God's sakes. You'd think he'd know how to read a defense, but I don't get Arizona.
I guess I expected the Commanders to come out and lay the boom week 1, and that's not a comment that the Commanders are good. It's a comment that Arizona is bad.
Yeah, but how much of that is Sam Howell and the Commanders just not being that great?
Yeah, I'm not. See, that's the whole thing. I was talking to another friend about this today, and there are a couple teams out there that I have no idea. The Cowboys. I assume the Cowboys are good. I have no idea how good the Cowboys are because they beat a trash Giants team and an even more trash Jets team, right? The Commanders beat the Cardinals, by having to make a monsters come back, and then they go and beat Broncos being down 21-3. Like, and then everybody in the world knew that they weren't going to get that 2-point conversion, right? When they got the Hail Mary.
Well,
Like,
I don't know. Was it pass interference? Maybe.
definitely.
I don't know. Probably, but I don't know. The Broncos, that's a whole enigma. Look, the Commanders are 2-0. 3 teams in the NFC East are 2-0. Best division of football, maybe. It's certainly not the Bengals and the AFC North and the trash that is everybody but the Ravens. And it's been an interesting start.
The Ravens beat CJ Stroud in his first ever game,
mm-hmm.
and then they beat a humbled, like a broken Joe Burrow and a clearly broken Bengals team. Are the Ravens good? I have no idea. Lamar looked great on Sunday, but they're another team. They're 2-0, but like, I don't buy it.
Yeah. Well, look, Atlanta's 2-0. I mean, I know.
Here's where I shout out YouTube TV. By the way, through 2 weeks, YouTube TV having direct, like, I never had direct TV. This is my first ever time with Sunday Ticket.
Oh man, Sunday Ticket's great.
It's the greatest fucking thing ever, right? Like, I much prefer to Red Zone. I'm just flipping quad boxes like left and right. Like, that's all I'm doing. Like, I feel like I'm watching more football, if that makes sense. Like, it's weird. Like, I feel like I get this. It's totally in my brain because like, you can't actually process and watch it all outside of just seeing, teams moving up and down the field. But it's amazing. And I love, like, I'll do the second screen. So like when there's one game I'm actually more concerned about, boom, it goes right there. It's the least amount of red zone I've ever watched because like,
well, think about it. Red zone is focused, especially in the 1 o'clock hour. Red zone's basically just constantly flipping between games for who's in the red zone, who has a big play. In the 4 o'clock hour, they're basically showing you whatever's the game on the fewest markets, right? Yeah. And then there's 3 or 4 games, so there's not a lot of action to cut to. So you're kind of watching like whatever the kind of semi-crappy game they're going to show you is. So you don't really watch a lot of football because you're just seeing like touchdowns. But you're right, when you quad box or you put like one major game on the big screen and you have the red zone on the smaller screen, now you're really seeing more football being played. Because red zone's whole idea is you want to see the action, that's it. There's highlights, that's really what it is. It's basically like an 8-hour-long highlight show. So, it's great that you have everybody can easily access it now, but Sunday Ticket's great. Obviously when you don't live in the same market as your team, it's important if you want to watch that.
Even Sunday, like I watched that whole Giants game. I'm in Denver. Broncos were on, right? But like, I mean, we're not at the point of the season yet where I'm ready to throw the towel in on the Giants. There's, they lost. We're just going to say they lost to the Cowboys and they beat the Cardinals. And frankly, if you'd asked me before, all things being equal, if you asked me before the season where the Giants would be after 2 weeks, I'd probably tell you they'd be 1-1. So,
I don't know. Well, I get what you're saying, but 1-1 is
whatever gets you through the night, right? But no, like the YouTube TV thing has just been, it's incredible. Like just even like Sunday afternoon with 4 games in the late window just to do the quad box. Monday night, I went to YouTube TV just to put the 2 games side by side. When we had the Saints and the Panthers and the Browns and the Steelers, like it's been really fun to be able to have it. And like, again, especially with gambling and fantasy, when there's the one game that you actually give a shit about, that you can actually watch above everything else. Because how much do you hate, like, you're not seeing anything on Red Zone, and then you go like into your like score app or whatever you use, and you're like, oh shit, they're driving. Like, what the fuck? It drives me nuts. I'm like, oh, haven't seen that game in a few minutes. That's the game I have the most money on. What the fuck?
Yeah, that's the one thing Red Zone is, or they stopped showing the blowout, but you want to watch that for gambling or fantasy purposes, and they just ignore like the really crappy game and the blowout to focus on what's competitive, even if it's not good football.
Yep.
Again, they're trying to show you action that matters, not necessarily what you want. You don't have any choice. So I agree. It's a great option to be able to have. But, speaking of Monday night, obviously completely season altering injury to your team in particular. There is, as one of the elves essentially lost a leg. We still don't really have a full diagnosis. I would imagine the career is probably in question to some extent, unfortunately, for Nick Chubb. And then to make matters worse, you just didn't spend enough of your fab, and now LaMagna has no fab left, but at least he has Jerome Ford.
Yeah, I spoke to LaMagna and I actually talked about this morning, and like, we're making fun of Wagner, and I don't want to let Wagner off the hook for the DeAndre Swift non-start on Thursday, because that's an all-timer idiocy by one of our managers. Just given, and it wasn't even like he had a tweener decision. Like, it was like, this is a very clear, obvious thing that you need to start DeAndre Swift tonight, and you did not do it, right? That's like a season-defining law. Like, if he misses the playoffs by a game, which I don't think he will, but like if he's missing that one win, he can really thank that decision. But stepping back, right? Like, the whole thing, how does fantasy work? How do we get good at fantasy, right? It's all process. It's all probabilistic. Nobody knows what's going to happen, but if you can put yourself in the position where you can get a lot of points, right? You win at fantasy. So I pride myself, and one of the reasons why I think I've been pretty good in the league is that I like my process, and it's paid dividends. I've won God knows how many titles at this point. And what I'm most upset about with this Nick Chubb thing is it's bad process, right? And let's just walk you through. For years, they had Kareem Hunt, and so he was always getting picked up in the draft by somebody. So the ability to handcuff Nick Chubb was essentially zero for me at all the years that I've had him. But Nick Chubb had been one of the most resilient running backs. Like, he only missed God knows how. Like, I feel like he never misses games. He's been playing a lot of games, even for some shitty Browns teams. And then this year, no Kareem Hunt. Jerome Ford is the clear backup, and nobody has him. And he's sitting out there as a free agent. And on Sunday morning, I literally looked at my lineups and I go, I've got fucking Jalen Hyatt on the end of my bench. He's not going to do shit. I need to get Jerome Ford in case Nick Chubb gets hurt. And I sat there and I went, I can wait one more week.
It's what I didn't unfortunately, it's a cruel game.
Bad process. And what I didn't want to do was chase that with more bad process. So, and for what it's worth, I think the bids are public. LeMagna only
the bids are public. The bids are public.
He only beat me by a couple bucks, right? Like, I went higher than I would have felt comfortable with for a single player, knowing that in desperation I had to do that. And fair play to LeMagna. That's why the fab is so great, right? Anybody can bid whatever they want. Who is that Steelers running back from years ago where we had the whole fucking collusive controversy over the monstrous bid? Yeah, there you go. $4 he beat me by. Tough shit, right? Fuck me.
Yeah. Look. For the record, I was contemplating going like $140. I don't like that, but I stopped myself because, again, process was, hold on. If I spend 70% of a team of the overall fab budget in week 2, and then I don't know, somebody else has a horrific injury or season-ending injury, and now you can't pick up a backup or a player that you might need. It's a hard balance. I completely understand the position you're in. Look, in a weird silver lining is LeMagna now literally has 0 fab left, right? And I don't blame him, right? You might as well go all in, because what's it going to do, right? Either it's going to work great or it's going to blow up. You can't take it with you, and maybe you trade for it in a historic first ever trade. But that's kind of thing. Like, for example, a $22 bid, is not going to get this.
No.
Like, not even close. So
no, if you're serious, and honestly, I want to shout out like the Puka, like last week with Puka. Puka kind of set the stage for what it takes, right? Because I remember I put a bid in for Puka that I thought was reasonable, and I lost, and because it was like the same thing, rookie wide receiver on a team that, are we sure the Rams are good? And we sat there and I went, if I get him, I get him. If I don't, I don't, right? Like, I put in a $50 bid for him, which I thought was 25% of my budget is pretty good. $100 for Puka last week looked like it was nuts. This week, it looks like it was the smartest move Manny could have ever made, right? Like, Manny might have just been a Cooper Cup level keeper for the next, based upon our new keeper league rules, right? Like, so in some ways, it's a bargain, right? You're looking at someone like Jerome Ford, and for me, I'm looking at it going, I'm desperate. I just lost my number 1 bell cow running back. I need him, and I put in a monstrous bid, and LeMagna beat me. Simply put.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. I mean, you didn't go and I didn't go cheap. I mean, I went over north of $100 as well. I mean, I think and I don't know if Manny set the bar or not. I think there's a lot of analysts out there that tell you, to do the X percentage of fab and all of that. But I also think you look at circumstance. With Puka, he did this 1 week. Seattle played terribly.
Yeah.
We don't know this dude was a 5th round pick. He's not athletic. He runs like very short intermediate routes. I mean, it's obviously works. So Manny deserves credit for saying,
Yeah.
I don't care, I'm going to go for it. But with Ford, we know what the Browns' offensive line is. We know that's an elite run blocking offensive line.
Yep.
So if he is the number one, and I know they added Kareem Hunt today, and who knows what that means, but there's a real chance that he's all of a sudden a top 10 running back the rest of the year and completely changes fantasy. Now, obviously anything can happen.
Right. And shout out to
that's
LaMagna,
a little
by
bit
the way,
different.
for the record. LaMagna then, by the time I was out of bed this morning, had already given me what I will only generously call a Paul trade to send me Jerome Ford. And to which I said, absolutely not. But I was like, fair play, right? Like, why wouldn't you have done that? Like, that's the game, right? That's the strategy. How desperate is Joe? Is he willing to do this? And the reason that I didn't do it is because, to your point, I sat there stewing over it, reading everything about fucking, they're going to sign Kareem Hunt, they're going to trade for Cam Akers, which we should talk about in a moment as well, right? And all this other shit. And I'm going, well, I'm spending a ridiculous amount of fab I lost. I'm not going to compound the mistake by parting with a player that I'm desperate to keep because now he's a key cog in the team. And what's Jerome Ford looked great on Monday night when Nick Chubb went down. Full stop. Looked great.
Yeah.
But Kareem Hunt's now there. And we've seen how that works before. And do you trust Kareem Hunt? Does it become a full committee now? And so, literally, you should have seen me. I was working through God knows what today. I got the pop-up alert on my phone that Kareem Hunt was signed. I don't think I've ever been faster on the fucking Flea Flicker site to pick up a player in my fucking life.
I'm at the office. It's busy all day. I'm in between calls, deposition preps, and it's like I'm eating lunch. I go, okay, let me go look ESPN. Oh, they signed Kareem Hunt. It might have been 45 minutes after it broke. The news broke. I go to Flea Flicker. It's like, Joe. I'm like, all right, well figured. Like, I'm not, makes sense. Hey, because I thought about putting a waiver claim in. I put a waiver claim in for Kareem Hunt below Pierre Strong, thinking, look, I'll take either what's of the likely backups here because maybe one hits, maybe it doesn't. I think it's fair play, right? You have to be prepared for that. I agree with you. I don't know what it's going to look like once Kareem Hunt's condition is once he's in game condition, because obviously he takes targets away from all the receivers. He will get some carries. Who knows? Jerome Ford's a young guy. Yeah, he had that one big long run, but that was really it.
Right. And then you look at the other, right. And that's the other thing is like Nick Chubb is so good, right? And it was kind of fun on Monday night. Like, I shouldn't say fun, like my heart goes out to, like, you all know I've had Nick Chubb since his rookie year. Like I feel like he's like one of mine, right? Like he's Casey's from Cleveland. She's a big Browns fan. I feel like I've been like on
the Chubb. He's like the size of an elf. So it makes sense. It really fits.
He's unbelievable, right? Like, and you could clearly see when Ford was in there, he doesn't hit the holes the same way. He doesn't have quite the cut speed, right? Like there's a clear downgrade in the actual position. But to your point, right? The offensive line is great. Here are my questions, right? It's still the fucking Cleveland Browns. And on Monday night, that game on Monday night. So I said this to a colleague today. Casey and I started dating in 2012. So I've been watching Browns games for a little over a decade at this point. Okay. I have watched, I know, right? I have literally seen Monday night's Browns game at least a dozen times.
Oh, no. Right? At least once or twice a year.
Exactly, right? At
least.
Completely outplayed a team and somehow fucking lose the game on some sort of shenanigans. And that was why, do you remember when the Browns beat the Steelers a couple seasons ago in the playoffs? And it was like the reverse, where the Steelers had these random ass turnovers. It was the same thing. The Browns didn't run a single play within the Steelers' 30-yard line.
Well, I heard something. I don't know if it's true, but I heard that the Steelers in the fourth quarter had negative yards.
Yeah,
which makes no sense. Obviously, look, you get 2 defensive touchdowns. I mean, I guess you deserve to win the game. But, I don't know. If the defense scores on the first play of the game and at the end of the game, I don't know if you're Cleveland, that's kind of stacked against you there. But I mean, it's the Browns. I know there's discussion. Are they cursed? Maybe. Art Medell. May rest in peace.
If they weren't cursed before, the Deshaun Watson thing, it's it feels like he's playing in a way that atones for it. He's garbage, right? He's absolutely.
I don't get it. I mean, I understand he didn't play for 2 years, but
and that's why
it shouldn't be this bad.
I say even with Jerome Ford, even with Kareem Hunt, right? That backfield has to take a downtick because now that there's no Nick Chubb, and you can kind of sell out, right, and just basically say Deshaun Watson be accurate, which he can't be,
Yeah. So let me. I'll pose this question to you because I have my own thoughts on what I should do. So you may also have seen there was a trade accepted in the league today. It's not yet been executed, and I wanted to save it for this moment. Um, when I got the email alert, I was like, first I thought, okay, somebody else made a trade. Then I realized that's my team. Then I went, when did this trade get proposed by me, and why? Like, no recollection. Then I realized, oh, this is some like after week one, some random proposal, try to kind of play the things. And then I didn't put a time limit on it. That's on me. And full fairness, the other owner accepted a valid trade proposal as offered. And I think it's only fair that I eat the egg on my face and that goes through. Clearly not, no meeting of the minds currently, but it's obviously it was proposed. It was still open. That's on me, and fair play to Bodson. I think that's totally fair. And honestly, looking at it, I'll live with it. I'm totally fine with the outcome. It did prompt the LaMagna Paul trade offer involving Jerome Ford, so fair play as well on that front. So yeah, I just want to get your thoughts. It's kind of one of those like weird fantasy things that shouldn't happen, but did.
So hold on, let's go back. Let's actually look at this. I'm unless you have it handy. Oh my God,
I do have it handy.
I've been flipping players like a fucking monster today because of the. By the way, also, good job by our league. Like, there is nothing out there for the running backs, especially as someone who just lost a running back. There is
there's nothing.
So listen, here's what I don't know, and this is so. First of all, I agree with you. I think the trade was out there. Bodson savvy, he got it done, right? I think that this is a good trade. I also don't think that this is a wholly ridiculously unfair trade.
I agree.
Like, I actually think this is a fairly, like, again, I don't want to declare anybody a winner. We still don't really know what Anthony Richardson is yet. He's obviously looked like he's a good fantasy player just based on the running and the touchdowns he's been getting rushing. But, maybe this is like, I mean, look, Justin Fields turned into a pumpkin. Maybe he refines it, but like, we don't know. He's less than a sure thing. The other piece of this is, right, like, Anthony Richardson, clear, strong keeper value if he turns into the franchise quarterback for the Colts. But given our recent change to the keeper rules, who knows how the keeper value charts and the way we look at this stuff changes. So putting all those things together, like, yes, this is this to me doesn't feel like it's a wholly unfair trade. And I also think that there's a lot of here for Bodson that he was smart, that you left it out there and he clicked okay, right? Rashad White looks to me like the other piece of this, right, is like, I think, well, who's your current quarterback? I don't even know that, actually.
Josh Allen.
So Josh Allen. So, I mean, look, Josh Allen's not a keeper. Maybe Anthony Richardson is. Last season, I rolled with Jalen Hurts and Justin Fields, and it kind of sucked because I had to figure out who I was going to start a lot of weeks because the two of them were going off every single week. And I did that because I had a feeling that Justin Fields might become a keeper this year. I kind of feel vindicated through 2 weeks that I didn't do that. Although now I look really even stupider because of what happened to Nick Chubb, but couldn't have known that. But all of this is to say, like, Rashad White, clear, like we just talked about the death of the running backs. Rashad White, clear bell cow back in Tampa. Tampa's another, are we sure they're a good team? But he's going to keep getting the volume in a pretty weak division with an relatively easy schedule. And Anthony Richardson, who knows? Maybe he is the real deal.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I have my reservations about Rashad White. I owned him in another league. It was not a guy that it was a guy I figured I'd end up drafting, but not in love with. I just don't want to trust the Buccaneers offense, I think is what it boils down to. And some of the underlying metrics aren't great with him. But that said, this is not probably a championship season for me. It's about what can I do that maybe makes sense in the future. For Bodson, it's savvy. He has three quarterbacks. He had three quarterbacks: Geno Smith, Deshaun Watson, Anthony Richardson. Why you punt on Richardson when you have others that are probably worse? That's for discussion. But he now has Eckler when healthy, White, Walker. He's got 3-4 bell cow type backs that he can rely on. So for him, that's a smart move from a strategy perspective and a depth perspective. And a shout out
to Bodson, who consistently, by the way, like, I do want to give Bodson credit, consistently is the owner of this league willing to do stuff like this. Right. Like, I think a lot of us, and I put myself in this category, get very conservative when it comes to thinking about trades and things like that. And Bodson basically says, fuck it, it's fantasy football. Like now, I also want to draw a very clear line in the sand between the Bodsons and the Pauls of the world, right? Because Paul is trading, Paul trades because he enjoys the actual act of trading. Bodson is trading with it's what seems like an actual plan of attack to be better. But like I appreciate it, right? Because it gives the league interest, right? Like last year was so freaking fun when, again, like we had that whole chat at the draft about, tanking's too strong, but like people kind of selling off too quickly, and that like the league became like this tiered thing. But it was pretty freaking wild to like see people like just wheeling and dealing and seeing what they could do to set themselves up for future years. And all of a sudden, I remember like it was Yumi and LaMagna had what were like largely the strongest teams last season, and I remember all of a sudden like because like I'm busy work wise and I'm getting emails that a trade's been accepted and all this kind of stuff, and I'm just like clicking like it's okay. And then all of a sudden I looked at one of your teams and I was like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, oh my God. Right.
Yeah. LaMagna last year really wheeled and dealed. He completely punted on this draft, and he went from like probably a very mediocre team to a very strong team very quickly. And I mean, his credit, and I agree with you. I think the way, and Bodson does this year after year, he's willing to make moves, willing to try to improve around the margins and the edges to be competitive. He's generally in the playoffs. He's generally one of the more competitive teams. Kudos to that. I mean, there were different strategies. And, look, when I saw it, I immediately realized it was my mistake, owned it, not a problem. That's how it goes. That's, honestly, it comes down to integrity of the league. It would be unfair for me to cry foul and to invalidate something that I allowed, that I created. At the same time, when you did mention tiers. I don't know if you've paid attention to the standings after 2 weeks, but there are some good teams and there are some real bad teams. We start looking at points. It's obviously early, but your division's a joke.
Yeah, I mean, it's the point score, but like again, like when I look at some of the teams in my division, for instance, right, we've seen some real weird like because nobody plays preseason. These first couple of weeks are really, really weird, right? And so, like,
I agree.
Like Tates' team is a perfect example of a team that, like, on paper, is a lot better than what it's performed over 2 weeks, right? Like, he's gotten absolutely nothing from Trevor Lawrence, right? Who's been a joke for 2 weeks, right? He's got Alvin Kamara suspended, who I kind of like the Saints team a little bit, and like when he comes back, that'll be great, right? And you see what I'm saying? So, like, it's not a bad team. It's just a team that, again, he's got caught with some of these underperforming teams in the first week. And I think the first 2 weeks, and I think that's the real deal. And the question really then becomes is like Joe Burrow is the perfect example. Like, how bad is this injury? Because last year the Bengals started out 0-2, and by midseason they were the force that became the team that went to the AFC title game and almost took the Chiefs down, right? Is he really injured? How bad are they going to be? And so when you look at all of that kind of stuff, like that's why, to your point, yes, right now the league looks like a joke. But, my division looks like a joke. But we're 2 weeks in. The Jaguars scored 9 points last week against the Chiefs defense. Like, I think we all need to take a deep breath and realize that, like, I think the Jags will be there. Like, the teams that have started slow, I can't see these being like what I would call like season from hell, right? Like the team that outperformed the season prior and then just fell off a cliff. Because then you look at the Eagles. Nobody would say that the Eagles have played particularly well through 2 weeks, but they got it done. They're 2-0.
Look, I agree with you. I was having this conversation with a coworker. The fact that we have fewer preseason games and a lot of these veterans basically don't play, or they play one series, they then have to treat the first 2 or 3 weeks like the preseason. The Bengals, I think, we're getting to the point where maybe it is Zach Taylor that's part of the problem there, despite the fact that they win games. But Burrow never plays in the preseason, is always hurt, always starts slow because of it, and they tend to turn it on. Now, we'll see. Justin's team is putting up a ridiculous amount of points, and Jamar Chase is doing nothing. So that can be very scary for the league.
But that's the thing. But Justin's team, right? Like, I mean, he had the number 1 overall pick for sure, right? And so he's been able to get a guy like Christian McCaffrey, who, if you got Christian McCaffrey, like, it's not quite the old Marshall Faulk days, like way back when, or with Daniel Tomlinson, where it's like if you got that guy, you basically won your league. But Lamar, how long does he stay healthy? Right? Keenan Allen's having like the best season of his career through 2 weeks, But if you look
Right.
at it like you got Mike Williams, if you look at target share, Mike Williams actually outperformed. It's just Keenan Allen got the touchdowns last weekend, right? Jamar Chase is a beast. Mike Evans had like a career game last week against the shit Bears defense, right? I feel like we've all had Mike Evans in fantasy at this point. We all know what
Yeah.
that experience is like. It's monstrously feast or famine.
Mhm.
So like, look, is it a bad team? No. Is it a good team? Absolutely. Is it a team that's going to consistently score 150 points a week?
No.
I'm not there yet, right? Hawkinson with 2 touchdowns against that Eagles team the other night. Like it was a monster week for him. Like I'm not taking anything away from Kirshner. It's a good team.
Right. No, I agree with you. You know, and that's, I think, the difficulty, right? Is obviously the number 1 pick. He traded for Chase. His team has all the potential to be a dominant team.
Yep.
It's not there yet. It's 2 weeks. It's just interesting, you know, when we look at the league standings 2 weeks in. I agree. You can't draw a lot of conclusions. You can draw some. I would be concerned if I'm, you know, Paul, right, and I'm averaging 80 points. That's probably not going to be. That's not a great sign.
Yep.
At the same time, it's a little too early to panic, right? You know, there's a lot that can happen. We've seen that. I think it's, and I agree with you. It's this idea of you had a bunch of monster weeks. Maybe you get to pile up on those and you really hit one. You get that little payout. At the same time, it's a long season. You know, we've seen this before where we've seen the best team lose in the final many times because that's just the nature of the beast. How it goes. It's a 1 week. All of a sudden, somebody has a bad matchup, or just they don't perform well. Whatever happens, or someone has a career game. We've
Alvin
seen that
Kamara
happen.
having 5 touchdowns in the playoffs that one time, like
right. Russell Wilson having a 40 or 50 point game. You know,
in the final against you.
right. You know, I mean that's the thing, right? You can be a team that's dominant and lose, and you know anything is possible. So
no,
we'll see how it all shakes out. But it is
right now. I'm leaning heavily on Raheem Mostert. Like we all know how faulty that's going to be.
Yep.
Like I'm eyes wide open, right? Like certain guys, it's like, hey, maybe this is the year Raheem Mostert stays healthy and doesn't get beaten by a Sean or whatever the fuck the guy's name is that I keep reading about is going to be the guy who's like can take over the job. But then on Sunday night, there goes Raheem Mostert for 2 touchdowns and 130 yards or whatever, right? Like so.
Look, you can always trade Paul for Jamar Gibbs, okay? You know, and Cooper Kupp with a C if you need. You know, look, there's always going to be options available as the season goes on. No, but you're right, though, right? You become we got guys suspended. You know, Kamara's suspended another week, I think it is. You've got injuries all over the league, right? Some short term, some longer term. It's going to have big impact. And we'll see. It makes it interesting, makes it exciting.
And how about look at Wagner with Cam Akers now going to Minnesota, right? Like that's a huge, like you get a clear, like what happens in Madison is Akers going to take the job over. That kid Ty Chandler, who I had on my team for a couple hours this afternoon. Then I saw the Cam Akers do. So I was like, get out of here.
Get out of there, yeah. But you know, I mean, look, the Vikings. I don't know, right? Madison is a metric nightmare. I mean, the advanced stats hate him. He doesn't do anything. Cam Akers, I don't understand. McVay and him, clearly they don't get along. I don't know what the issue is. There's clearly more to it because it's not like he's out there just being terrible. I mean, hell, Chase Claypool's not trying and he still gets touchdowns. Like, you know, it's clearly not an effort thing. It has to be something about personalities, whatever. I don't get it. Maybe he clicks in Minnesota. They could use somebody with a little more explosiveness and decisiveness, you know, hitting the hole compared to Madison. I agree. Ty Chandler, I was sitting there preseason. You hear this little hype rumblings, you know, what's going to happen. I don't know. And for the Jets, right? If you're the Jets, let's say Minnesota loses to the Chargers this week at home. Why don't you pick up the phone and say, hey, what's it take to get Kirk Cousins on an expiring contract?
The only problem is they don't have anything else to trade after what they went to go get Rodgers.
Right. Well, you know, they have the Green Bay second-round pick. You know, but that's the thing, right? Like, what do you do if you're a team and you feel like you're one piece away? I don't know what the Jets do, but I would think you got to kick the tires.
Through 2 weeks, it's pretty clear the Jets defense is really that good. Garrett Wilson is really that good. Breece Hall is really that good. And so I think, to your point, going all in for Rodgers was the best option on the table, and I don't fault him. And it's no different than Nick Chubb's knee getting busted in week 2 and Aaron Rodgers losing his Achilles in week 1. It's hilariously awful. Like, I mean this like with as much empathy as I can, although I am kind of joking about it, but like, that's a horrific, like unfortunate event. Like, what do you do about that? Like, that just, It is what it
Yeah,
is.
yeah. I mean, is this the
Day
week where
for a
Burrow
sport,
goes
shit
out there?
happens, but like again, the same thing with Bonson. I love teams that are taking chances like that, right?
Mhm.
The Rams got their Super Bowl by doing this. The Rams looked like trash last year. The Rams, who were supposed to be garbage this year with a bunch of rookies, and McVay's coaching them into it. They gave the Niners everything on Sunday.
Uh, it was competitive. Look, I watched that game.
Stafford was dealing, man. Like I was like,
Okay, I watched the game, kickoff to final whistle. The first half, the Rams were very competitive, but the Niners, in typical fashion, the end of the first half, go down and get points. Then all of a sudden, in the second half, they got a 10-point lead, and it just felt like they kept the Rams at arm's length. In the second half, they never let the Rams really get close. They said, "Okay, like good play to you, but we're just going to kind of stiff arm you, hold you just far enough out there." Now, I love McVay at the end, kicking the field goal. You know, you want to talk about whether that's for tiebreakers or Vegas or whatever. I don't care. I mean, I think it's hilarious. I agree with the point. You should always go for the points, use it as practice, use it as developmental time. But the Rams are feistier than we thought. But man, they're only going to go as far as Stafford's elbow. And,
that's fair.
you know,
That's the other thing, right? Week 2, everybody's healthy. Week 1, week 2.
well, right. Most guys, right. But now
like,
Monday night, what do we have Monday night? Isn't it like the Rams and the Bengals? You know, you got Stafford's elbow and you got Burrow's calf. I mean, if somebody doesn't walk out of there with a bad injury, it's a win just because of Monday Night Football and everything. You know,
well, yeah, we've seen the Monday.
That's a tough thing.
I saw somebody was talking about the Monday Night Football curse between what happened to DeMar Hamlin and then Aaron Rodgers, and then
yeah, we're running like three.
Wasn't DeMar Hamlin the last Monday night game of last season or something close to that? Right?
Yeah, it was because it was week 17. They don't do Monday night, week 18. Yeah. So we're 3 Monday nights in a row.
We've had 3 horrific injuries in a row.
You know, and Burrow's got the calf, right? If you stress the calf too much, you'll tear the Achilles. So, you know, I don't know what Cincinnati will do, but that's obviously a risk. Stafford's arm is you know, I don't even know what kind of cartilages or ligaments are left in the elbow, but he can still sling it. But everyone's healthy, right? You know, this is sort of that early season. Kudos to the Rams that are clearly feistier than anyone thought. In the NFC, they could easily sneak into the playoffs with an easy schedule, and they're just going to be able to catch teams because that offense will generate production no matter what. And obviously, Aaron Donald can wreck a game. So I don't know. You know, it's early in the year. It's going to be fun to see it all play out. But
I just want to leave you with the thought that I texted LaMagna the first Sunday of football season, which was, this is the worst football I've ever watched. And I'm just so grateful that it's on fucking television. And I'm just so happy we're back in football season with games round the clock. We've got a killer slate of fucking college games on Saturday. Then we're rolling right into Sunday. It's a great weekend. We got a little North London derby early Sunday morning. It's gonna be a chock full weekend.
Hey, look, you know, you're not going to be up at 1 a.m. to watch the race in Suzuka.
Yeah, you know, I literally it's 11. It's only 11 for me. Remember?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I think I'll go for the 7 a.m. kickoff at the North London Derby instead.
Yeah, I don't think.
I will say that the Singapore race was the most entertaining one of the season. I fucking love that was a Sunday morning. Great.
Yeah. But that's the thing, right? That's such a a street circuit. I mean, this is a complete aside, right? But a street circuit can really be very dynamic because you can have lots of accidents. Little mistakes can have huge ramifications. You had obviously Max starting in 11th that completely threw the grid, you know, out of order. And then you had Mercedes just said, fuck it. They just went full send. We're going for it.
See, like, again, like we've been talking about the whole process, right? Mercedes saving those brand new medium tires, and it would only work if there was a safety car in a given window of certain laps, and they fucking got it, right? But they put themselves in the position where when that safety car came in, they go, we got the new mediums. And I mean, damn, I was like ready for it. Like they were really putting the charge into the Ferraris there at the end of the race.
Well, that's why these teams, they do all this research for at circuits, how often there's a safety car and when it tends to happen, so that they know, okay, we need to optimize our strategy or have the ability to pivot at a particular moment. You know, and look, when it works, it's incredible to watch. That late charge, obviously Russell crashing a lap from the end. You know, Verstappen almost catches Leclerc. I mean, you had all these little mini races going on at the end. You know,
it was great stuff.
It's great.
You know, in a season where it's just been Verstappen just running away with everything, to watch a race where like tire strategy, pit strategy actually mattered was so much fun. Like,
Right. And
just
the team's not mess it up. You didn't have like the Ferrari Monaco 2022, let's double stack and literally blow the entire race in like the
yep,
10th lap because we're just incompetent. You had
yep,
teams executing their desired strategy and you got to see it play out. I mean,
yeah.
and of course, we go to a completely different track, a lot of high speed, faster corners. Verstappen's probably going to be running away with it. But look, it's still exciting because there's still all these other races and mini competitions going on. If it's for third or it's for a constructor's position, and that's all that matters.
I've been
It was a great race.
I've got people saying like I'm done with it. Like Max just wins all the time, and I'm like, yeah, but there's so much other fun stuff going on behind there. And like again, I feel the same. Max, there's a lot that I feel about Max and Novak Djokovic, which is I hate them personally, but I respect the shit out of what they're capable of doing as an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to look at what Max is doing and be just utterly impressed with the skill level. What was it? 10 races in a row? That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, well, he not only won 10 races in a row, but most of those he's way
Not
up the
even close.
road.
Yeah,
It's not like he's winning by 5 seconds. He wins 10, 15, 20, 30 seconds up the road. I mean, when he's half a lap ahead, it's pretty remarkable when you think about
you
what
watch
that
the
means.
start, it's like, oh, Max got away clean. I can turn it off now.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is he doesn't even start. He's not even the best starter. Usually he's a slow starter compared to some of the other cars around him, and then he's kind of got to fight for it lap one. And then once he gets the clean air, but I don't know. I mean, I guess it's different, right? F1 is now so much more visible and watched in the United States. Lewis was winning not every race, but he was dominating season after season. And it wasn't all that dissimilar, but nobody over here really paid attention in the way that we do now.
Yeah.
And I think that's different. We haven't grown up with this where if you look at history of F1, teams and drivers have dominated in very specific periods. That's kind of how it works. Somebody dominates the regulations and everyone plays catch up. I mean, it's no different than.
It's unfortunate that most Americans became fans in like the greatest season of all time. That's the reality.
Well, right, exactly, right. We all Netflix, we had COVID, you had Strive to Survive, and then the very next year was the most intense title race maybe ever. Obviously, there's the whole 08 Massa, Singapore Grand Prix conspiracy, but essentially the greatest final race of the season ever, most controversial. It's hard to live down, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to meet that expectation, and it's hard to keep everybody engaged. But F1 is no different than if we think about like the Niners in the 80s, the Cowboys in the 90s, the Yankees in the 90s. You have dominant periods of sports teams or franchises. But I mean, it's not really dissimilar when you think about it, right?
Awesome.
Right. We don't turn off the Premier League because Man City wins 5 out of the last 6 titles, right? Like it's you watch because you love to hate and you want the underdog to win. That's plain and simple. That's sports in a nutshell. I think we'll just end it here on that, right? That's sports. Obviously, you'll be rooting for the underdog Buffaloes with your gummy and your. Honestly, I thought Mad Dog, now to come full circle, I thought he was going to say something about his shorts down by his ankles, and I was, I don't even know what Marcus Spears would have done.
That was truly
that
like
happened.
an all-time. Like I just gotta say, like for those of you who are listening to this, if you haven't seen this Mad Dog rant, please, I beg you, it is the most entertaining thing you will see in months. I was cackling today when I saw it. And I also have to appreciate LaMagna sent me the meme of it with Marcus Spears with no context, not even saying, have you seen this? Do you know this? Just sent it to me, knowing that I had full well seen the video, and it was perfect. Yeah.
I mean, in real time over the course of 90 seconds, just the reaction of, again, when he goes t-shirt and shorts,
I'm
like, oh, is this, are we going to get some, is this going to end up, I don't know what, it was taking a weird turn. He kind of saved it a little bit. 10 times on Dion in Colorado. I don't know. I mean, I told him, Magna, I wouldn't be surprised if he's silently suspended for a couple of weeks. I don't know that that's the image ESPN wants out there, portraying that it's studio folks are out there
getting fucked up and gambling. But also, in fairness, how much of ESPN's viewing public is doing literally exactly that? Because
okay, but that's not what ad execs want, right? Like, they're leaning into gambling. They're not really leaning into, booze and marijuana. That's not quite there yet. That's not mainstream enough. I'm with you though. Like I get it. It's probably a lot of their folks are just, especially college kids, but yeah, I mean, I don't know that we'll see them next week. I'll put it that way.
Awesome. Well, as always, it's such a pleasure to get to chat with you doing this.
Yeah. No.
I do want to just wish everybody luck for the season. I think it's a good one. I'm just so happy we're back here. It's just so much fun. So
yeah, likewise. I agree. It's been fun. It's been well. Get some rest. I know we'll both be up early, chasing little ones around. It's a different world, man.
I know.
I can't wait.
Now I get to close this and answer the 16 work emails that I haven't. So I got.
Oh yeah. I don't even like. I'm not even.
Yeah, we're having fun tonight. So anyway,
it's still early enough out there for you. There's an expectation for you to still work.
Yeah,
a little bit later here
I
on
should
East
be
Coast.
responsive on this. So fuck me, right? But
exactly. All right, Joe.
I'll talk to you later.
Take care. Yep.